In the turbulent political scene of ancient Rome, the name Caligula rises as a synonym for tyranny and cruelty. However, his journey did not begin in the shadows of madness, but in the lights of glory. He was born as Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus, a member of a noble and influential family. His father, the beloved General Germanicus, was a hero among the Romans, and his mother, Agrippina the Elder, came from a powerful lineage. Caligula's childhood was marked by both tragedy and prestige. At a very young age, he was nicknamed Caligula by the soldiers of the army, in reference to the small military boots he wore, a symbol of his proximity to military power. But behind this innocent nickname, a much darker fate was lurking. From an early age, Caligula witnessed the devastating consequences of Rome's power struggles. The mysterious death of his father and the eventual destruction of his family by Emperor Tiberius shaped the young boy who would eventually become one of the most feared emperors in history. But how did this child, so close to the affection of the legions, transform into a tyrant crueler than any other ruler Rome had known? When the aging and distrustful Emperor Tiberius chose Caligula as his successor, many in Rome viewed this with skepticism. There were rumors that Tiberius had already lost his mind, isolating himself on the island of Capri, where he was said to have cultivated a kingdom of perversion and suspicion. In this suffocating atmosphere, Caligula was summoned to the imperial court. Upon arriving on the island, Caligula found himself surrounded by conspiracies and betrayals, engulfed by enemies. He learned the art of deception, hiding his hatred for those responsible for the deaths of his parents and siblings. Under Tiberius's tutelage, the young man appeared submissive, but in his heart, a burning desire for revenge grew. Finally, in 37 AD, Tiberius died under mysterious circumstances. Many believe that Caligula hastened his death by suffocating the old emperor. As soon as Tiberius was declared dead, the Praetorian Guard, the powerful protectors of the emperor, proclaimed Caligula the new emperor of Rome. The young prince now held absolute power, but what Rome didn't know was that the man taking the throne was about to lead the empire into an era of terror and madness. At the beginning of his reign, Caligula was adored by the people. He restored to Rome the shine that seemed to have faded during the dark years of Tiberius. The new emperor organized games and festivals, pardoned political prisoners, and even doubled the Praetorian Guard's salary, ensuring their loyalty. His youth and charisma charmed the masses, and many believed he would be a generous and just ruler, like his father Germanicus. But that hope was short-lived. Only a few months after his rise to power, Caligula fell gravely ill. For weeks, he hovered between life and death, and Rome remained in suspense. When he finally recovered, something inside him had changed forever. The once promising young emperor had turned into a dark and troubled figure, obsessed with power and control. After his recovery, Caligula began to show signs of drastic changes in behavior. He ordered the execution of several members of his own family, including his cousin Tiberius Gemellus, who was co-heir to the throne. This act shocked the Senate and the people, but it was only the beginning. Caligula quickly distanced himself from the Senate, treating the senators with contempt. He demanded to be worshipped as a living god, something unprecedented for a Roman emperor. Statues of him were erected throughout the empire, and he forced the Jews to accept a statue of him in the Temple of Jerusalem, an act that nearly led to a rebellion. His whims became increasingly absurd. He ordered the construction of a floating bridge over 3 kilometers long on the sea, supposedly to ride across it in his chariot, symbolizing his power over the gods and the elements. Additionally, he declared his horse, Incitatus, a consul, adorning it with jewels and providing it with a luxurious residence. Caligula began to see himself as a divine being. He dressed up as Roman and Greek gods, from Jupiter to Hercules, and even as female deities like Venus. He believed that only he could save Rome, and that everyone should bow to his will. As his madness progressed, Caligula's acts of tyranny and cruelty intensified. He instituted a reign of terror, executing senators for trivial reasons and confiscating their properties to fund his extravagant projects. Any sign of disloyalty was punished by death. And it wasn't just the rich and powerful who suffered under his tyranny. The people of Rome were subjected to exorbitant taxes to sustain Caligula's eccentricities, and any public dissatisfaction was swiftly suppressed with violence. Caligula was also known for his personal cruelty. He delighted in watching torture and executions, often participating actively in acts of brutality. It is said that, in a fit of rage, he ordered part of the crowd attending the gladiatorial games to be thrown to the beasts, simply because there weren't enough criminals for the spectacle. Furthermore, he began publicly humiliating his allies and members of the Roman elite. He frequently gave long, incoherent speeches, forcing the Senate to applaud his words, and on some occasions, made his closest officials kneel before him, worshiping him as a god. As Caligula became more unpredictable and dangerous, discontent within Rome grew. The Senate, though weakened, began conspiring against him. But the Praetorian Guard still remained loyal to the emperor, being handsomely rewarded for their loyalty. However, even the Guard began to realize that Caligula's reign could not last much longer. Palace intrigues and conspiracies intensified, led by the officer Cassius Chariot, who had been constantly humiliated by the emperor. Caligula's tyranny reached its limit when he began planning a senseless military campaign against Britain, which many believed was just an excuse for him to demonstrate his power. Finally, on January 24, 41 AD, Cassius and other Praetorian conspirators ambushed him during a public event. Caligula was stabbed multiple times and, according to reports, even begged for his life, something that surprised those who saw him as an implacable tyrant. After his death, his wife Caesonia and daughter were also killed in an attempt to eradicate any trace of his lineage. Caligula's death brought relief to Rome, but the legacy of his tyranny remained etched in history. His reign was one of the shortest among Roman emperors, but the impact of his madness would resonate for generations. He not only defied the political and religious norms of his time, but also pushed the limits of cruelty and tyranny to an extreme. His successors, like Emperor Claudius, tried to restore order, but the damage Caligula caused to the prestige of the imperial throne would be felt for a long time. His name became synonymous with madness, cruelty, and despotism, and to this day, he is remembered as one of the worst tyrants to have ever lived. The story of Caligula is a grim reminder of what happens when absolute power is placed in the wrong hands. His reign, though short, was marked by excess, violence, and an unrelenting pursuit of adoration. The young man, once loved by the Roman legions, transformed into one of the greatest monsters Rome ever knew, and his name will forever be remembered as the most tyrannical emperor in history.